perfections, these are most abundantly manifested in those humans whom Allah Ta'ala has chosen to perfect to the greatest degree that's possible for a human being. The Anbiya, alayhi salam, and the Awliya Allah, friends of God. And another of these classes, inshallah, be devoted to Maulana's teachings about them specifically. It's related from our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he told his companions, I was a prophet while Adam was between water and clay. As for our forefather Adam, peace be upon him, to the amazement of the angels, already anticipated the contrary nature of this new figure on the landscape of existence. Allah appointed him to be his Khalifa, his deputy on earth, taught him the names of all things. What's the meaning of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam being taught the names of all things? What's it mean? It means he understood their archetypal realities, their manifested nature and their place, and the divine plan which embraces every atom in existence. Allah Ta'ala knows best. So this is the Khalifatullah, and this is the knowledge he's being given, which the angels weren't. The mission, manifesting the hidden treasure, Kanz Makhfi, the divine attributes of beauty, is shared by all children of Adam, however imperfect. We're called to this duty. We're described in the Holy Quran as being deputies on earth. As such, we have the duty to maintain good order upon earth, which is only possible if we first impose good order upon ourselves, with upright and pious behavior and the worship and obedience we owe to our Creator. That duty is called the sacred trust, the amana, which, as the Holy Quran recounts, was rejected by the mountains of the earth, but accepted by man. Maulana says about this in one of his discourses, what are we here for on earth? There is one thing in this world which must never be forgotten. If you forget everything else, but not that one thing, have no fear. But if you perform, remember, do not forget all things, but everything else, but you forget this one, you've done nothing. We offered the trust unto the heavens and the earth, the mountains, but they refused to carry it, and were afraid of it. The man carried it. Surely he is very sinful, very foolish. We have honored the children of Adam. Allah did not say we have honored the heavens and the earth. So man is able to perform that task which neither the heavens, nor the earth, nor the mountains can perform. If he undertakes that task, he will no longer be sinful, very foolish. If you say, well, I don't do that, but I do so many other things, man was not created for those other duties. It's as if you took a special priceless sword of Indian steel, like you find in the armory or treasury of a king, and you use it to cut up meat. I'll leave it there. It's just interesting to note that Imam Rosales uses the same method in Kimiyah Sa'adat al-Din. So the Amana. The fitra, the primordial nature of mankind, is such they are equipped to undertake this task by virtue of the scope of their rational understanding of the light that Allah has put in it. In the final analysis, this springs from the fact that the human being is created as a microcosm. He is the universe in miniature. It is for the sake of his deputies on earth that the Creator maintains the cosmos in existence. Maulana puts it like this in the Masnavi: pure star-like spirits sustain the stars in the heaven. This is to do with the belief that these, what we see as balls of gas up in the air that are flame, are kept going by some spiritual influence from beyond. The outer forms of these stars sustain our world. Cosmologically, it was believed that, for example, transformation of base minerals into precious ones was done through heavenly influences. But our inward reality sustains the heavens. You are microcosm in form, but in meaning, macrocosm. Maulana says about this human microcosm, a human being, any human being is something immense. All things are inscribed there within him. Yet there are veils that impede him from reading the knowledge he has inside him. Those veils consist of a variety of preoccupations, worldly stratagems and desires. Yet despite all these things lie hidden obscurity behind those veils, Still, man is able to read something and to be aware of what he's reading. Consider how aware he becomes, what knowledge of himself he uncovers when veils are lifted and darkness is dispersed. This is talking about the ability to invent things, the apparently inexhaustible ingenuity of mankind, for good or ill. Every kind of trade, tailoring, building, harvesting, goldsmithing, astronomy, medicine, and so on, was discovered within mankind, not underneath rocks and clods of earth. It is said that a raven taught man to bury the dead, but actually it came from a reflection of humanity that was cast upon the raven. It was mankind's own impulse that caused it to do it so. The commentary, of course, on the story of the murder of Abel by Cain in the Quranic narrative. After all, animals are part of man. How could the part teach the whole? Likewise, if one wishes to write with the left hand, you may pick up the pen, and however firm your resolve, the hand will still shake as you write, assuming that you're right-handed. All the same, the hand does write something because of the command from the heart. So, the children of Adam accepted this trust willingly. We're told in Quran, Surah Al-Araf, remember when your Lord took from the loins of Adam's children their progeny, had them testified about themselves, am I not indeed your Lord? They said, yes, verily we bear witness. This was our Creator addressing the spirit of each one of us before ever humanity was tainted by coming into contact with this material world. The ayah continues, that was lest you should say on resurrection day, but we were unaware of this. End of quotation. We all have innate knowledge, however deeply buried within us, and we have individual conscience. These are part of the trust which, as children of Adam, we shall have one day, tomorrow, to answer for. The mission of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam and his progeny as representatives of God upon earth would be inconceivable without the precious gift of the aql, the intellect. According to Islamic metaphysics, the cosmology, the pen, Arabic qalam al-a'la, also termed the universal intellect of aql kun, is the fundamental active pole within the order of creation. It inscribes the contents of its knowledge of what is to be, according to the divine decree, writes it upon the preserved tablet of Lawh al-Mahfuz, also termed universal soul, nafs al-kun. And this is the means whereby the Creator brings all entities into existence. Wallahu a'lam. Cosmologically, the heavens, or the world, superformal being, beyond forms, is the active element, while the earth, or the world of materiality, is the passive elements. The sana, the el. These two elements and everything within them are continually alluded to in the Holy Quran as being the domain of Allah Most High alone. With that, so many names to this effect. Within the miniature universal microcosm that is the human being, in fitra, primordial terms, it's the intellect that corresponds to the universal intellect, your aql, your reason, the active principle, and it's the nafs, self or ego, which corresponds to the universal soul. In the primordial human being, our state of natural equilibrium, the fitra, Homo sapiens, if you like, the ego is subordinate always to the power of the intellect or the reason, under control of the reason. And the reason has power to discriminate between truth and falsehood, between right and wrong. The task of the nafs is to implement the directives of the aql. But when mankind lose their primordial nature, become contaminated by materiality, to the extent of becoming dominated by it, attraction, downward attraction, the earth, the opposite becomes the case. The aql comes to be to a greater or lesser extent subordinate to the nafs. It says in Masnavi, alas for him whose intellect is feminine, this doesn't mean a matter of gender, it means that it's being subordinate, and whose ugly ego is masculine and dominant. Inevitably, his intellect will be vanquished, he will be carried towards loss. Happy is he whose intellect is masculine, whose ugly ego is feminine and is dominated, subjugated. Such is the divided nature of mankind. The angels, by contrast, these are created from pure light, or we may say from pure intellect. Animals are created from pure, or let's say impure, materiality and sensuality. We, however, created human beings possessing both intellectual and sensual natures. The intellect is angelic, essentially speaking, and the natural ego is sensual. This doesn't mean the intellect is impervious to being influenced, of course, as we see in a moment. It's through the nafs that Shaitan and his helpers, na'udhu billah, seek to influence mankind. For the nafs is akin by nature to the devils, to the evil jinn. Of course, intellectuals are very subject to being influenced by Shaitan, but through their intellect, because the nafs is able to get in there in subtle ways. Maulana says in the Masnavi, the ego and the Shaitan were a single body, but they manifest themselves in two forms. Way of saying how akin they are in their inclinations. This is due to the human journey, the human soul's descent and reascent. As we've seen earlier, before we came into this world of phenomenal existence, our spirits were bearing witness to the divine lordship. Then after having been in divine presence, we came into this world. Travelling the spiritual path, the tariqat, consists in breaking free from the earthbound ego, those veils that obstruct our vision of the immaterial world. The spirit rises through successive stages, which symbolically are associated with the ranks of the malaika, the angels, and the anbiya, the prophets, finally reunited with the amr, or divine command, from which it originally sprang. Prototype of the spiritual ascent being, as you know, our prophet's Ma'raj, journey through the heavens, one heaven or another, to Sirat al-Muntaha, the furthest limit of the world of forms, beneath the kursi or the footstool, which encompasses the world of forms. All this being described in detail, as you know, in the Sahih Hadith. Where does this ascent begin? In the sense it begins with the everyday marvel of creation that we tend to take for granted. The physical development of the human embryo, which increases in complexity before his or her birth as a Homo sapiens baby. At first our natures resembled that of the mineral kingdom in that we had no ability to move, talking about our lives in the womb. Then we acquired the ability to feed and grow, like creatures of the vegetable kingdom. Then by the time we came down the birth canal out into this wide world, we possessed all the faculties, to some degree, natural to the animal kingdom: movement, hearing, sight, speech, will, desire, attachment, anger, and ability to learn and understand. As you know, the embryo is understanding things, learning things already while in the womb, we now know. All these faculties were gradually refined as we grew, acquiring, inshallah ta'ala, intelligence, discrimination, and the virtues essential to the fully human, the fully spiritual life, a matter of years for human beings. This process is alluded to in several passages of the mighty Quran. Less than the Allah, the greatest, the most wondrous of the creators, and rhetorical because he's the only creator. The human developmental stages are likened by Mawlana Rumi to successive lives and deaths, as is our passage again from this world to the next, a subject to which we will shortly be turning, inshallah. For that we may add that Mawlana Rumi also speaks of a cycle of descent and ascent for inanimate things, originating from divine acts willed to create. They descended into the world of manifestation. Eventually, they are absorbed by breathing or ingestion into animate creatures, and then to become integrated into humans, which in turn are retransformed eventually into spiritual beings. All this represents a cosmological concept. This is not a doctrine of reincarnation. Those who fail to transcend their animal nature, we'll talk about humans now, share the animal's lack of higher consciousness. Unlike them, however, they are answerable for that failure, as we saw just now. The one thing in the world you have to undertake, no matter if you don't do any of the other ones, but this is the one you must, to carry the trust. In the preface to one of the 6 daftaras or books of the Masnavi, Maulana touches on this point. He says, here begins the 6th volume of the book of rhyming couplets and spiritual evidences, which are a lamp in the darkness of imagination, perplexity, illusions, doubt, and suspicion. I think it's supposition, not suspicion, it's this Nicholson translation, sorry, supposition I would say. This lamp cannot be perceived by the animal sense, because the state of animality is the lowest of the low. For animals have been created to keep in good order the outward form of the lower world. Their senses and their faculties are circumscribed, limited, by a circle beyond which they may not pass. That is the decree of the Most Mighty, the All-Wise. In other words, God has made manifest the limited scope of their action and the narrow range of their speculation, just as every star has a certain orbit and sphere of work to which action extends in the heavens, or as the writ of a city's governor runs within that city, but he does not govern beyond the outlying districts of that city. Maulana finishes this preface by saying, may God preserve us from being imprisoned and sealed off by him, and by that by which he has veiled those who are veiled. Ameen, O Lord of the universe. Let's see if we read this a little bit. I can't remember if this one is in Arabic. It's sort of very last week. Kind of nice for the benefit of people here to hear something in Arabic. It's not. No, just the dua in Arabic. عَسَمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ حَبَسِ وَخَطْمِهِ وَمَا حُجِبَ بِهِ الْمَحْجُوبِينَ آمين يا رب العالمين. As we've seen, Allah Ta'ala has created death and life, making us mortal beings to try which of us is best in actions. And it's a sort of book. Without being put to trial in this worldly life, mankind, we've had no opportunity to put to use those God-given abilities which distinguish them from animals, or the free will which distinguishes them from the angels, or to merit the reward of eternal happiness in proximity to the Creator, or, God forbid, the requital of eternal misery in the hellfire. Indeed, without first having experienced loss and sadness, down here, mankind could never fully appreciate the triumph, the foals, the blissful happiness of everlasting life in paradise. It have nothing to contrast it with. The prospect of death at a moment unknown to us is the spur to living a life of obedience to the divine command, not only in old age, which we may never look to see, but from our earliest days as people endowed with judgment between right and wrong. Whether or not we have come to terms with the reality of the human situation and our obligations, death is the moment where in reality, where the capital R arrives, our situation finally dawns upon us. The mundane things that may have preoccupied some people till their last breath fades into irrelevance. What may have seemed distant and immaterial becomes vividly, perhaps terribly real, right before us. The Allah says in the Quran that the pangs of death are come. That is what you used to flee from. As the unseen opens up before our reawakened senses, the haqaiq, the realities, become like tangible, visible things. For those who didn't believe the unseen, now it's too late to acknowledge the truth. And our actions, good and bad, will be embodied and shown us, accompanying us into the hereafter. The dead person enters the barzakh, into space between this world and the next, and the worldly battles are over. It's a little excerpt from one of the stanza 8 poems of Maulana. Wake up. Rid yourself of thoughts and illusions. O Lord, send the drummer to wake up our sleeper. The sleeping man suffered 1,000 griefs over nothing. In his dreams, he sees wolves or is scared by a bandit. In sleep, the soul sees 100 swords, 100 spears. It awakes, and all those it sees not one needle. The dead say, what vain sorrows we suffered while our lives went by, filled with all manner of evil distractions. For one man, illusion wears the dress of a bride. For another, illusion is clad in chainmail. At this moment, their wedding and wake have quite vanished. Not a dance left from one, not a wail from the other. They scratch with their nails, lacerating their cheeks, but when the dream passes, no nail marks on their cheeks. Where is he who was with us as milk was with honey? Where is he who was with us like water with oil? Now comes reality, sleep's fantasy is gone. Peace and safety are here, we and I are no more. So the illusions are gone, and the dead realize what they could have become, what they've actually become. Maulana says that everyone's death reflects their true existential condition. Now the dead person awaits the judgment when no one shall be wronged, when all shall learn what is to be their eternal fate, perfect joy or wretchedness. Quote from the Masnavi. The Prophet said, on the day of resurrection, every single body hears the command, arise. The sound of the trumpet is the divine command. O atoms, lift your heads up from the dust. Each person's spirit shall return to his body, as consciousness returns to bodies each morning. The body knows its own shoes in the darkness. How should the spirit not know its own body? Don't be surprised at this resurrection. Moreover, when the resurrection comes to pass, the dead person's own limbs will testify for them or against them. As we read in Surah Fussilat, and as Maulana reminds us in the discourse, he says, a resurrection, all of man's limbs, hands and feet and so on will speak one by one. Philosophers try to explain this away by saying that a hand can't speak except by some gesture or the other, which will be instead of speech. Something like a wound or a scab will appear on the hand, so you might say figuratively the hand speaks or tells that it was burnt. If scarred, the hand might speak and tell it been cut by a knife. If black, the hand says it's been rubbed against a black pot. Speaking of the hands and limbs will be of this sort, according to these sophists, these philosophers. The Sunni Muslims say, God forbid. Absolutely not. This very hand will speak palpably, just as the tongue does. On resurrection day, a man may deny that he's ever stolen. His hand will say plainly, oh yes, you did steal. If it was I who took it. Man will face his hand and speak, beat and say, you did not speak before. How is it you can speak now? They will answer, God hath caused us to speak, who giveth speech unto all things. He causes me to speak, who causes everything to speak, who causes doors, walls and stones and mud clumps to speak. Creator who can endow all these things with speech gives me speech also, just as he's given your tongue power of speech. Having said something earlier on about the angels and the devils and the other animate creatures, let's return for a moment to the position of the children of Adam, how they set out in relation to them. Maulana, quoting the Prophet himself, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, divides animate beings into three categories: the angels, the humans, and the beasts of the head, in Arabic. He divides humans likewise into three categories: the angelic ones, the common ones, and the bestial ones. The first group being, the angelic ones being the Anbiya and the Awliya, the prophets and saints. The second are ordinary people who have conflicting tendencies to faith and unbelief. The third are the followers of Shaitan, whether they know it or not. Fihi ma fihi, the discourses, Maulana tells his listeners this. Angel is saved by virtue of his knowledge. The animal, by the opposite, doesn't have knowledge, doesn't have that responsibility. But the sons of man remain between those, struggling in conflict. Some men have followed the intellect to such an extent that they have become holy, angelic, entirely luminous, these being the prophets and the awliya. In some human beings, sensuality has dominated their intellect, so they've become entirely animal by nature. And some men have been left struggling, some of mankind, these being the group who feel some suffering and distress and longing with themselves. They're dissatisfied with themselves. And these are the believers, from what we know. This leads us on to the last area of this, last part of this presentation. I've gone on and on in previous talks and not allowed any time for questions or comments, so this time determined not to commit that mistake. As I mentioned in the previous talk, this world is the arena of conflicts between opposing tendencies or forces, all in the final analysis being manifestations of divine attributes or the privations, opposites of them. But for these conflicts there would be no just reward or penalty from the Creator. In the Quran he tells us he himself has willed and decreed that this be so. Had he wished, he would have made of mankind a single community. I wish we made of mankind a single ummah. Had he wished all manner of dreadful wrongdoing would not have been committed, all people would have been rightly guided. Yet the wisdom behind the divine plan, though ultimately unfathomable to us, is perfect. Allah Ta'ala is justice itself. One of his names being, not the just, but justice, al-adl. So it is that we humans often realize, if we become sufficiently aware of Allah's help with our heart, the most precious thing we possess is a battleground where the forces of good and evil fight it out. May Allah Ta'ala Most High help enable us to come to Him with sound hearts on the day when nothing else will be of any avail. Now I end this talk this time with the Ghazal from Maulana. First the Persian original and then my attempt at the translation. Excuse me while I just get this. ای دل چه اندیشیده در عذر این تقصیرها زان سوی او چندان وفا زان سوی تو چندین جفا زان سوی او چندان کرم این سوی خلاف بیش و کم زان سوی او چندان نعم زین سوی او چندان خطا زین سوی تو چندین حسد چندین خیال و ظن بد زان سوی او چندان کشش چندان چشش چندان عطا. Lots of Arabic words here for you, let's spot Arabic. چندین چشش از بهر چه تا جان تلخت خوش شود چندین کشش از بهر چه تا در رسی در اولیا از بد پشیمان می شوی الله گویم می شوی آن دم تو را او می کشد تا وارهاند مر تو را از جان ترسان می شوی و از چار پرسان می شوی آن لحظه ترساننده را با خود نمی بینی چرا گر چشم تو بر بست او چون مهری در دست او گاهی بغلطاند چنین گاهی بازد در هوا گاهی نهد در طبع تو سودای سیم و زر و زن گاهی نهد در جان تو نور خیال مصطفی این سو کشان سوی خوشان آن سو کشان با ناخوشان یا بگذرد تا بشکند کشتی در این گردابها چندان دعا کن در نهان چندان بنا اندر شبان که از گنبد هفت آسمان در گوش تو آید صدا بانگش ای و نالش بان اشک همچون ژالش چون شد ز حد ز آسمان آمد سحرگاهش ندا گر مجرمی بخشیدمت و از جرم آمرزیدمت فردوس خواهی دادمت خاموش رها کن این دعا گفتا که این خواهم نه این خواهم نه آن دیدار حق خواهم عیان گر هفت بحر آتش شود من در روم بحر لقا گر مانده منظرم بس دست از او چشم طلم من در جهیم مولاتم جنت نشاید مرا جنت را بی روی او هم دور دوزخ است و هم عدو من سوختم دین رنگ او کو فرعن بر لقا گفتن باری که کم کردیم تا گم نکردت مبصری که چشم نابینا شود چون بگذرد از حد را